God, this is going to be weird. Hi there, friends. This is Dana coming at you live from Philadelphia. I am recording a video today on a couple different platforms because I got into, I guess, an online discussion as best you can with somebody in the YouTube comment section of a recent video done by the Officer Tatum. I am going to link that down below once I figure out how to work technology. You have to forgive me. I'm 40 years old. The Officer Tatum put out a great video recently where he broke down Charles Barkley's remarks and what they mean. But then he kind of moved on from there and started to talk about the different ways that pharmaceutical companies are kind of controlling our lives and what that means. And he eventually got into vaccine injury. And just the way that he made the statement, it seemed clear to me that he either had some experience with it or that he knew someone that had some experience. It seemed very heartfelt to me. And so I had made a comment to that effect as the mom of a vaccine injured child, yada, yada. So, a couple people chimed in with like, what does that mean? And it's just so hard to understand whether or not people are being serious online when they ask for those kind of experiences, because a lot of times what they're looking for is they're looking for that experience so that they can pick it apart and fight over it. I don't necessarily understand that. I'm happy to just put a statement out and do that. So that's what I'm doing today. In terms of vaccine injury, number one, it's more prevalent than you think. The CDC funded a study with, I believe, Harvard. It was known as it's called the Pilgrim Study. It was, I believe, done funded by the CDC at Harvard. And what it found is that only 1% of vaccine injuries are actually reported. So while we often hear that vaccine injuries are rare or that it's 1 in a million, we really don't know what the true numbers are. What I can say with absolute certainty is that there have been more deaths reported to bears in 2021 than in all of 2019, which is the year we have the most recent data. They haven't collated 2020 yet, so we're talking about 2019. There have been more deaths in 2021 as a result of vaccines than in all of 2019 combined. When we look at what that really means is that it really is the COVID vaccine. For me and my family, we're going to stay away from it. And I have to say that I find it very difficult to see parents offering their children up for this untested medical procedure. Even the creators of the vaccine, especially the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, those are mRNA vaccines. And what they do is they act more as an operating system than they do a traditional vaccine. Now, if you look at the vaccine that Johnson & Johnson has recently put out, that vaccine is more like a traditional vaccine, is more like a DTaP or a flu shot or what you would see there. The two mRNA vaccines, those are more like operating systems, and they are literally meant to change the core of who you are in your DNA. That's some serious shit to offer your kids up to. I, as a doula and a birth educator, I am someone who advocates for full autonomy. I do not support things such as infant circumcision. I don't even support baby girls getting their ears pierced. I really feel very strongly about things like bodily autonomy, the right to refuse without needing an explanation. And I just don't find that medical professionals at this juncture are respecting those values at all. And there was a time when I would have said that this was a political issue, that it's more left-wing and Democrats that are kind of pushing for these vaccine mandates and pushing to restrict our ability to say no and still enroll our children in school that we pay taxes for. Those things are happening more in Democrat-led states, but the truth of the matter is that the pharmaceutical companies send thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to political candidates every single year, and especially in election years. The political candidates are more concerned with, they get more funding from the pharmaceutical companies than they ever get from these little nickel and dime dollar donations. Now, there are some candidates that have really made a lot of money with those nickel and dime donations, but generally that's not how it is. It comes from these big corporations. And so the pharmaceutical corporations, they have a lot of money. Okay. I would have said that it was a mostly political thing, but it's not anymore. The landscape of that has changed since 2020, since COVID. What does this have to do with vaccine injury? If vaccine injuries, if only 1% of vaccine injuries are being reported, if there have already been over 500 deaths reported to VAERS as a result of vaccines, but that 500 there only represents 1% of all actual vaccine injuries. That to me is concerning, because the only thing that's different about 2021 versus 2019 is the COVID vaccination. So I am all for adults that feel like they have risk factors, they're high risk, and they decide that they want to get the vaccine for themselves. But I feel very strongly against children because they cannot give informed consent. And I think parents that are allowing this on their children are not fully recognizing the potential for long-term side effects as well as short-term side effects. When we look at vaccine injury, what happened with my daughter? She was born in a freestanding birth center, which means it's basically a home birth in the midwife's birth center. It's basically a home birth in somebody else's house. So she was born at home. We did not do the traditional, like, go back to the doctor within 24 to 48 hours because the midwife comes to the house along with an assistant. They weigh the baby, they check on me. So, I mean, I had that kind of care. That's what woman-centered midwifery care looks like. It's not what the hospital is providing now. That is allopathic medicine's version of birth. And that is not what woman-centered midwifery care is all about. So she was born at home. She received no vaccine. She did not get the vitamin K shot. She did not get the antibiotic ointment in her eyes. She did not get the hepatitis B shot. So what I did for today is I actually printed out, this is the schedule. I tried to print it out in colors to make it a little bit easier. I have two cameras here, so I'm trying to make it easy for people to see. These are the 2-month shots. The first time we went to the doctor, she was about 2 weeks old. And when she was 2 weeks old, the nurse practitioner was like horrified that it took me so long to bring her in. And I explained to her, because she doesn't know what midwifery care is like either. She thinks you have the baby and then you never see anybody again. They really think that, like, a midwife comes in with like a bucket of hot soapy water. That's not how it works. I come in, I give her, she gets the hepatitis B vaccine. She's pretty cranky, but it's not a big deal. A couple weeks go by and we are heading into her 2-month shots. We go into her 2-month shots. I would like to read what is administered during the 2-month shots. And you know what? I think I'm just going to go ahead and keep track of the different diseases, because I think this is where I personally get a little bit hung up. Okay. So she would have received the second hepatitis B. So that's Hep B. That's one disease. She would have gotten the first dose of rotavirus, which is an oral vaccine. So that's, I'm just going to call that oral. That's not a shot. That's an oral vaccine. By the way, folks, that is a live virus vaccine, rotavirus. So it does have the potential to make you or your baby sick. After your 2-month appointments, if you go ahead and get the rotavirus vaccine, it's really important that for the next 2 weeks you are that you treat your baby's bottom as if it is like a hazard. It's a live virus vaccine. That means that you or the baby can get the virus from the vaccine. If you are changing the baby's diaper, you don't wash your hands properly, you can catch rotavirus. It's a really nasty diarrhea disease, and it can be very deadly. I get the point of having a vaccine for such a thing, but maybe if we could get a vaccine that doesn't cause the actual disease, that would be great. So she got Hep B. She got the second dose of Hep B. She got rotavirus. She got DTaP. Okay. Now DTaP is diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis. So now we're fighting off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different diseases. And now we got HIB. The HIB. I don't know what the HIB is. I know she don't got the HIB. And inactivated polio. So here we go. Another disease. So that means that at 2 months old, the immune system of a 2-month-old baby was given enough shots, chemicals, things that we're going to talk about if you want to stick around and are willing to face the truth about it. She was given these things at 2 months old. she was expected, her immune system was expected to fight off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different types of diseases at her 2-month appointment. So she received her 4 shots and her 1 oral medication, and we headed home. She started to cry before we even got home. It is not unusual for a baby to sleep after their shots. And so because they cry a lot, and then sometimes once they calm down, like they're just so worked up, and then once they finally calm down, they get in the car, you put them in the car and they sleep on the way home or whatever. Sometimes they're cranky. It really depends on your situation, but she was pretty quiet. She woke up about 10 minutes into the car ride and she started to cry. And it wasn't like sobbing. She immediately started a hard, the kind of crying that like she was like choking on her own, snot and stuff. And it was just this like horrific, shrill kind of crying. And I thought to myself, like, this is okay. This is a reaction. She's just not feeling good. And I just need to, stick through it. Right. And we get home and I'm still not really sure what to do. And I'm nursing her. And as long as I'm nursing her, she seems kind of happy. But the second I take her off the boob, she's screaming. She continued to scream for 72 hours. Now, upon making the pediatrician's office aware of this, I was told that it was normal and I could go ahead and give her some Tylenol if I wanted to help make her more comfortable. Now, if anybody knows anything about vaccines, about health, about the way the body reacts, the immune system, we know that taking Tylenol depletes. Hold on, let me remember it. I always get these mixed up because there's a couple different versions. Taking Tylenol depletes glutamate, I believe, which is needed for the immune system to properly fight these viruses. So when parents are being told to give their child who is having a vaccine reaction, then they're told to give them Tylenol, all that does is make it more difficult for the baby's immune system to function properly. So what? So why does any of this matter, right? When we give a baby a vaccine, we're not just giving them the inactivated virus, or in some cases, the activated virus. There are other what are called excipients, like they're just non-medical. So I'm going to I'm just going to randomly pick these. I just printed this out. This is 4 pages long. It's the vaccine excipient summary. Okay. Everybody see it? I'm reading right off of it. This is literally from the CDC's own website, and we're going to discuss what it says. Okay, guys? Formaldehyde, aluminum phosphate, polysorbate 80, rice protein, sucrose, sodium chloride. Isn't sodium chloride the thing that they give you to stop your heart when they're killing prisoners? Can anybody check in? Is anybody here? Is anybody listening? Is that is what they kill them with? Dye? Why do you need dye in a vaccine? Why does food coloring need to be in a vaccine? Is anybody aware of what is happening? I really wish there was like a really good reason for this, and there just isn't. Okay. Here we go. Flu vaccine. Madden-Darby canine kidney cell protein. Dog kidney cell protein. Okay. Saline. This kind of makes me like gross. Thimerosal. Okay, so thimerosal is something that we could definitely talk about. There has been a lot of evidence. Robert F. Kennedy has kind of led the way against thimerosal. So most flu vaccines now do not contain thimerosal, but it is a very dangerous additive. And you do have to be careful because, the flu vaccine is not one formulation. There's different formulations from different pharmaceutical companies, and that's how that happens. All right. Again, everything has formaldehyde in it as a preservative. As a mom, I kind of wonder what happens when you inject formaldehyde and bypass the brain-blood barrier. It has to be quick, and I need 5 minutes. What's up?
We're talking how.
Yeah. What do you need? I need 5 minutes. What do you need?
I just wanted to tell you.
Yeah, I'll call you when I'm ready. Okay. All right. The kids were out playing at the yard, but I guess they're not. Playing at the park, but I guess they're not anymore. Okay, here we go. Let's look at the MMR. That's meningococcal. You know, the meningococcal vaccine is something that I'm a little concerned about. Okay, so let's talk about Grace. So Grace screams and cries for 72 straight hours. This is not normal. Unfortunately, because she has been given 4 shots and 1 oral vaccine, I don't know which vaccine in particular she reacted to. What I do know is that screaming for 72 hours is not a normal reaction. This is something that should have been investigated. It should have been sent to a neurologist. We also have evidence of DTaP and food allergies being closely related. Vaccine injury can look different for different folks. For a lot of people, their children regress after their 18-month shots. I know some people that have had children that regressed verbally, that were no longer able to speak or walk, that started to have seizures, that have, vaccine injury looks different for every family. In our family, it resulted in a number of food allergies that we continue to deal with to this day. Back here, when she was 2 months old, I was much more susceptible to the bullying that goes along with most doctor's appointments. And I think that our culture sees the bullying that happens in doctors' offices as them kind of taking care of you. It's really patronizing. Don't you worry about it. That's a normal reaction. No, we can keep going ahead with the shots. I went ahead with the shots. So she did complete her DTaP series. Let's see what's in DTaP. Does anybody know? Anybody know off the top of their head? Okay. Oh, we already touched on some of these. Okay. So again, even with DTaP, we still don't know exactly what DTaP is. There's different types of DTaP. There's several different formulations here. If I can get it close in the camera. I can't really get it to focus as much, but there's several different formulations here. This is a list. Again, you can print this out for yourself. Okay. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. All right, let's just go with the Pediatrix, which seems like a pretty popular enough one. It says that the date is from February 2020, so this is just prior to the, oh, there's a Ebola in here. Great. Yeah, that's what I need, Ebola. Okay. Formaldehyde, aluminum hydroxide. Anybody know what you find heavily in the brains of both Alzheimer's patients and children with severe autism? Anybody want to guess what you find in their brains? Might it be aluminum? Curious how that would get there. Aluminum phosphate. Oh, okay. In case the aluminum hydroxide isn't enough, there's aluminum phosphate, sodium chloride, polysorbate, neomycin sulfate, which is an antibiotic, and polymyxin B sulfate, which again, I believe is an antibiotic. So in addition to the viruses that are being injected at this time, we also have several different types of aluminum being injected. We also have several types of antibiotics being injected. This is relevant to you if you or your family has a history of antibiotic allergies like ours does. Again, now my daughter is allergic to sulfa antibiotics, which is interesting because I'm just now maybe making some connections here in terms of these different types of sulfate antibiotics being used in the vaccine. So I just want to, touch on lightly what is supposed to happen. That the vaccine is supposed to stimulate the immune system to make antibodies. The issue is they're not just making antibodies, and the immune system is not just reacting to the dead or live virus that's injected in very small amounts. The immune system is also reacting to all these other things that are being injected. And when we have, again, now this is DTaP. A friend of mine has a daughter who's a little bit older now and has children of her own, but she had a really bad allergic reaction to her vaccines as well. She also is now very allergic to eggs, right? But when we look at that, there's actually egg protein in a lot of these vaccines. We have children who are now allergic to dairy, allergic to corn, allergic to any number of things. We have people who suffer from, stomach issues. But then we also have evidence that antibiotic overuse can lead to those things, and we're injecting antibiotics into 2-month-old babies. I mean, there's no consistency. There's no integrity across the board there. We're just not even going to. We're just going to ignore all the aluminum we're injecting. That's fine. That's fine. Sodium chloride stops the heart. That's fine. Here we go. Oh, this is my favorite. Okay, so just so everybody knows. Chickenpox. When you get the varicella, this is actually a live virus vaccine. So if your child has recently been vaccinated for varicella, again, it's the same thing as being vaccinated for rotavirus. That child, as well as your entire family, has to be meticulous with their hygiene for the next couple of weeks, because this is actually passed on in stool. I have had, people think I'm nuts. No, okay, Karen. That's where I got the name of my channel, Karen Cares. Okay, Karen. Well, here you go. So I had a client, she was around 35 weeks, and she's a mother of 3, and she's having her 4th baby. And this was like a surprise pregnancy. So things were a little bit stressful. They were trying to sell their house and move while she's 8 months pregnant. She takes her daughter for her regular well visit, and calls me about 2 weeks later, and she's like, oh my God, this is awful. Now, I'm her doula, by the way. Just if people are not familiar with what a doula is, it's a paraprofessional labor support. I'm do a little bit of birth education. I stay with my clients when they're in labor. I support them physically throughout the process through massage and touch and kind of setting the atmosphere and encouragement, suggesting position changes. So my clients and I are very, very personal, and we often talk about health issues and also like very personal issues. It's not uncommon for me to have discussions with people where I'm like, well, the vaginal discharge can become, is it more like gooey, like sticky, like snot, or is it more like chunky, like cottage cheese? I mean, this is a conversation that I am okay having, okay? So my client and I are very, very personal. She is telling me about the issue she is having, being now 8.5 months pregnant with 3 children, working full time, trying to move. She has just developed shingles. And I'm sitting there because as a doula, technically, I'm not supposed to delve into this topic, I suppose, but I could not help myself but ask, any chance you recently took any of your children to a well visit? Oh, yeah, you know what? I just took my daughter a couple weeks ago. Any chance she got vaccinated for chickenpox? Well, yeah, but what's that got to do with anything? Well, dear, it's a live virus vaccine, meaning that it sheds. There are pathogens in the child's stool and urine that can easily be passed from one person to another through just sanitary issues in the toilet. I mean, when you're a full-time working mom who's moving with 3 kids, like cleaning every bathroom in your house with Clorox wipes is not on the top of your list. But if your child's going to get vaccinated for something like rotavirus or chickenpox or like a live virus vaccine, you do have to do that because the shedding does cause issues. It can cause issues. So anyway, I kind of explained to her the way this works, and she was pretty pissed. I mean, she is a mom who was, she was 100% pro-vaccine, and even today still is. I think that's the most interesting thing to me, is that sometimes people can go through these experiences, and she went to her OB, and she asked her OB, and she said, Yeah, you know what? That sounds like that makes a lot of sense. And then she said, well, why didn't the pediatrician warn me? I don't have a real good answer for that. Maybe they didn't know. But I find it discouraging that a practicing OB or a practicing pediatrician who could see a mom who was clearly pregnant wouldn't just mention something like that. Because mom was a little bit older, closer to my age, she naturally had chicken pox when she was little. So that virus then is stored in your spinal column. And once it's exposed to the live virus in the varicella vaccine or the varicella booster, it can essentially like ignite what has been a dormant disease. And then, wherever it settles on the spinal column is where you're going to get your rash. And most people are not aware of that, but it actually shows you where in the spinal column your herpes zoster virus resides. So all of these things are possible. There are more than one live virus vaccines in the childhood schedule. So what does this mean now for us in terms of Grace? Grace suffers from a number of food allergies, and food allergies are really difficult to deal with because most of our food is obviously prepared at home. Everything that is bought has to be bought gluten-free, dairy-free. A lot of times looking for products like that means you can only find them organic. So, they're I've shown my daughters, like, this is a loaf of bread that is $2 and it's this big and it's this big, fluffy, delicious, soft white bread. This is $2. And then I go over and I get the hard lump that is gluten-free bread that's half the size. And I say, okay, here's a $2 loaf of bread. What do you think this is? And of course it's little and it's not that good. So they don't think it's going to be that much. $5. So I'm getting food. I'm trying to feed a family of 5. The food is half the size, twice the price or more. This is all a result of these food allergies. None of this was a problem before that episode. That episode now, I know, was an episode of encephalitis, which is swelling in the brain. I don't know how that may affect her to this day. The only thing that I can say for sure is that I know that the food allergies affect her. It's hard for people to maybe visualize. And sometimes I take pictures, not to be kind of obnoxious about it, but to show people what it really looks like. There's, when she is accidentally given gluten for whatever reason, she becomes violently ill. I mean, like, she's like vomiting for hours, and it's really, really sad. And then, not only does she have that episode, but I don't know if you've ever like thrown up or had food poisoning, but it's not just like she throws up once. It's like she like throws up and then it's like just bile, and she keeps like retching, and it usually lasts, again, anywhere between 2 and 3 hours if she's exposed to something that she's allergic to. I'm not a medical expert, and I would love to tell people to listen to their doctors, but I have entirely too much experience with too many doctors to say something like that. I couldn't in good faith say that to you. I suggest that you really look within yourself and start studying natural health and how to maintain your health in the best way possible. These vaccines have 100% liability, or 100% liability free. In 1984, Ronald Reagan signed the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. I believe I said those words in the right order. Anyway, we more or less refer to it as the 1984 Act. And when Ronald Reagan signed the 1984 Act into law, it gave blanket liability to pharmaceutical companies. Anything that is listed here on the CDC's recommended schedule for children, any and all of these vaccines have no liability at all. So if you are one of the 500 people that have died this year after their vaccines, you cannot sue the vaccine maker. If you are one of the hundreds of people that are now crippled or handicapped, disabled in some way, unable to work, you have the option of suing the government now. On average, that process takes between 8 and 10 years. You have to pay for your own lawyer, pay for your own medical experts for 10 years. the top award that you can be given in that vaccine court is $250,000. And it takes 8 to 10 years to get a verdict. It's essentially blanket liability. And if only 1% of vaccine injuries are being reported in the first place, does it even matter? If we know that the CDC's Harvard Pilgrim study said that only 1% of vaccine injuries are being reported, what does that mean? It means that we have a lot of people that are walking around injured, that are sick, and that don't realize why. It's sad that people can't make the connection even when it's right in front of their face. For me personally, I just had to get on and kind of tell our story. She suffers from these things today, and it is now 4:15, and it's even time for me to go to go feed her. If anybody tuned in and could just give the video a thumbs up, I would appreciate it. I would like to come back at some point and talk to another family that has experienced vaccine injury. I just know that there's too many families that that have been through it, and they don't really have an outlet. Like, there's nowhere for those families to go. I guess they could go to the vaccine court and spend 8 to 10 years paying for lawyers and medical experts out of their own pocket for a decade to win a $250,000. I mean, that won't even buy a house in Philadelphia, which, by the way, the prices of homes in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania are going through the roof. You want to know why? Everybody's trying to escape New York. But do you know what that means for us Pennsylvanians? They're going to New York our Pennsylvania. They're going to bring their shitty liberal politics into the state with them. I'm praying for all of us that we are raptured soon. I just want to get out of here. I hope that in heaven, I no longer have to cook dinner. I hope that in heaven that food and vaccine injuries are not a thing. I hope that in heaven, I have a personal chef. I'll do all the laundry and I'll clean bathrooms and like mop floors. I love pretty much any and every home chore. I do. I just enjoy being home. I like taking care of the house for my husband. I like straightening things up. I like feeling like, oh, I found this special thing that you were looking for, or here, you didn't like these kind of underwear, so I found this kind of underwear for you. Like, I like being able to be home and do those things. And I realize that those things are a blessing, but I am so sick of cooking. I am so sick of cooking. I couldn't even begin to tell anybody how much I hate to cook. I mean, it's really sick. So I am going to take some time and woosah myself after this. I have, if anybody is interested, you can always reach out to me again. Oh yeah, they call yeah, I'm sorry, honey, I didn't see this. They call M3M. Yeah, it has formaldehyde in it, sweetheart. Let's see. This is, again, I mean, I showed this a couple times, so hopefully if you're still here, I don't know. This is the vaccine excipient summary. This is available to any and everyone online. We're in a position now, guys, where like we literally have all of the world's information at our fingertips within our phone. We just need to know where to look. Some of this information is censored by big tech companies, so I often recommend that people use platforms like DuckDuckGo or Ecosia. If you go ahead on Google and you start looking for this stuff, it's going to be like buried on page 10. They're making it difficult to find on purpose because they prefer you to remain ignorant throughout this. So yes, it has formaldehyde in it. Yes, it has those things. Yes, it has yellow number 6. Why? What do you need food coloring in a vaccine for? Does anybody understand that? Is there a single good, I hate cooking so much. Is there a single good reason to have this, to have food coloring? Food coloring? What color did it start out at that you felt compelled to add additional color to it? I mean, that's creepy as, yeah, formaldehyde. And look, formaldehyde, honestly, it's the first ingredient listed in almost every one of these vaccines. We have monosodium glutamate, dextrose, human serum. Don't even talk about what that is. Can't even talk about that online. Okay, we also have glycerin, citric acid, magnesium, ascorbic acid, sodium chloride, formaldehyde, DTaP, formaldehyde. They are all about the formaldehyde and the DTaP, sweetheart. All right, we also have, here we go. Oh, well, that's ridiculous. Yeah, she didn't get that one, the chicken protein. Okay. In the MMR, we have bovine serum. That's cow serum, right? So what we're doing is we're injecting something into a child. We are intentionally antagonizing their immune system to become activated at the presence of this, whatever it is. But in addition to this, whatever it is, measles virus, we're also teaching the immune system to become activated at the presence of bovine serum. Well, what is that? That's a cow. So what does that mean? Red meat, milk, dairy. You're training the immune system over and over and over again to mount this incredible autoimmune reaction to these things. We have egg protein in here. We have so now we're talking about chicken. I mean, I have a friend whose kid is allergic to like chicken and turkey and pork, and it's like, well, what the hell do you feed the kid? He doesn't like red meat. Great. Like, I don't envy her for that. Yes, there is formaldehyde in all of these. I can prove it. I'm sure this will be taken down at some point because I have actual evidence. I hope they go ahead and fact check me. Again, you know what? My email is just my full name, danabanigan@yahoo.com. You can email me and I will email you direct links to these pages if you would like to print them out and research for yourself. I would love for someone to go ahead and tell me what health benefit does aluminum phosphate have? How does that make me or my child healthier? I mean, I feel like it's crickets across the board, right, guys? Anyway, I'm going to go ahead, Basha. You and I have got to get together again for tea because maybe. Know what, Basha? You and I should go out to dinner. We should like leave the husbands at home with like just a tray of chicken nuggets and French fries in the oven, and we should just beat it and meet at a diner because I need to talk to somebody that's sane. As for me and my friends, we have been hanging out since the beginning. All three of our husbands work in jobs that are, what were you calling them in the beginning? They were like necessary jobs essential. Yeah, they were essential all of a sudden. So they have these essential jobs. They've been exposed to COVID from the beginning. My husband's been exposed to COVID a number of times. All of my friends' husbands have been exposed or have actually caught COVID. We believe we have had COVID. I am not going to live my life in fear of a virus. I simply refuse. I'm sick enough that any strong virus could potentially knock me out. And I have to assume that risk. What I don't presume to do is to foist it upon you that it's your moral obligation to get a vaccine to protect me. As a sick, high-risk person, I'm telling you it's not. And I think it's really sick and demented that someone would say it's your moral obligation to get a vaccine to protect somebody else. You have no moral obligation to protect me. It is my job to protect me and my children. It's not your job. I don't feel like it's my job to protect your children either. And I'm sorry. There's only so much time and attention that can be given to any one thing. And the saying that I love the most is I'm not going to set my kid on fire to keep yours warm. I don't know which of those 5 shots my child had an allergic reaction to, but I refuse to offer my child up on the altar of the pharmaceutical companies anymore. I'm just not doing it. And if they were to come to my house and kind of force me to get one vaccine or the other, I would have to go ahead with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. But if anybody is interested, I have an experience. I was in a clinical trial for Janssen, which is the sister company of Johnson & Johnson. This clinical trial was not for a vaccine. It was a number of years ago. It was actually for treatment-resistant depression, and the clinical trial was for intranasal esketamine. I had a really difficult experience with that drug. And then with the doctor who runs the study, deciding that the side effect was not related. And so it was never reported. I've seen the way doctors wiggle out of these things, and I just remain unimpressed. I don't find their advice to be useful. I find it to be rather self-centered and self-serving. They kind of just want to get through the appointment. And you know what? Like, I don't envy that. envy them that, because I know that insurance companies have kind of turned their practice into like one big factory, and they just kind of have to turn out patients and get through it. But I mean, like, I have some serious questions. I have some serious questions about why we're injecting formaldehyde. I have serious questions about why we are injecting various amino acids and bovine serum, and which is they take it from the hearts of baby calves when they're still living alive, and then they just, kill them and whatever. It's tender beef, I guess. I don't understand why there is sodium hydrogenocarbonate and phenol red. I don't understand sodium chloride, which they used to stop your heart when you're a criminal. I don't get any of these things. In addition to that, this medical freedom movement begun long before vaccine passports became a hot topic. But since they have become a hot topic, a lot of people have been speaking out more against it. And I would really love to welcome those people aboard the medical freedom movement. There are a number of groups that you can get involved in politically. What happens is I'm part of a group that does outreach via email and just contacting our state representatives, going to rallies. It's really important for our reps to hear from us. They don't know what kind of legislation to support unless they hear from their constituents what that is. So there have been times when I've gone in to speak to a state representative about a vaccine issue, and I happen to know that he was a pro-life Democrat. And so I mentioned that there are aborted fetal cells and aborted fetal cell lines being used in vaccines today. It's something he was unaware of. So, we think that like state reps or that our politicians are like somehow above us on a platform, that they're like untouchable. But most of the time, if you're down on the state rep level, those are people that have, that come from the neighborhood, that come from the area, generally speaking. And they typically are available for meetings. So it's really important to get involved. There are a lot of action groups that reach out in various ways to bring awareness to this issue in various ways. And I really encourage anybody that's interested in that to get in touch with me, and I will put you in touch with the appropriate people. I am nowhere near an expert at any of this. What I am an expert at is I have been digging in, yes, online. I get my information from Google, because unless you go down to the library and use the Dewey Decimal System to look up a medical journal, you use Google too. I've been in at least 3 doctors' offices when I have said, this is what I think is happening. And then they look it up, and then they order the blood work, and then the blood work comes back, and guess what? That's the thing that it is. So I tend to jump all the way in and get super nerdy on this stuff. And really, that's what I did. I have a couple of great books I'm happy to lend to people. They are a little bit older, but they are hard to find now, because they used to be easy to find, Barnes & Noble and Amazon, and now they're just kind of restricting all of that stuff. So that was really all I wanted to go into today. I invite anybody who has had a reaction to any kind of a shot, or if your child has, I would love to talk to you, or you can send me a private message if you don't want to speak about it publicly. I totally get it. In terms of if you are here watching on YouTube, I would ask that you go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. If you're on Facebook, same thing. It beats the algorithm monster, which helps me. At this point, I am only working very part-time as a doula, so I am this is a way for me to just bring awareness to friends and family. I've noticed in the past couple of videos, when I've brought more current events to people's attention, they were unaware of it. And I understand that people are kind of like burned out after 2020 in terms of politics, but it's really important that those of us, and it seems like those of us with young children, are the ones who are going to have to fight the hardest against this. So, it's really important that we get out and like, I don't feel like this channel needs to reach 1,000 people for it to matter. I feel like if it opens the mind of just one person who can open the mind of 12 people, I am 100% okay with that. If nobody sees this, that's okay too. It's just really good for me to get this off my chest sometimes. Family and right. Oh, good point, Tori. So family practitioners and doctors themselves, they don't know the ingredients. There are videos you can look up online. I don't know if her channel is still around. It might have been bumped off, but you can search Talia Like It Is, where she goes in and she actually questions people in like CVS or or Rite Aid, and she'll go in and she'll say, oh, well, you know, I'm 30 weeks pregnant. And she's pregnant. Oh, I'm 30 weeks pregnant. And I want to get my OB said I should get the flu shot, but I'm not really sure like what's in it. Can you kind of explain the ingredients? And she does it in a that's the way she stays through the whole thing. It's not an argumentative piece. It's just, well, can you tell me a little bit about that? Well, why would there be formaldehyde in a flu shot? Well, isn't thimerosal really just mercury? And isn't that like really bad to inject? So then like, why would you inject that in pregnant women? And she kind of goes through this whole thing with people at CVS, and you can tell they are just, they're stunned into silence by their own ignorance. They are a big part of the problem. Hashtag part of the problem. Amen to that. So anyway, I'm gonna jump off. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off for today. I'm thinking tomorrow I might tell the story. I'm thinking tomorrow I might tell the story about my experience in the clinical trial, because that was really interesting. I had a let's say a mental health episode, but it's a little more juicy and fun to talk about than what I talked about today. So I'm thinking that I might get into that tomorrow. If anybody's interested, let me know. I appreciate you guys being here and checking in. I hope everybody's having a good day. It's beautiful outside here in Philadelphia. Stay tight, guys. Love you. Bye. Gracie Bear, what do you need? My youngest baby, my little vaccine injury darling.
Oh, you're still going?
Yeah, just do this. Come here. What do you got?
So I made gluten-free pizza.
You made a gluten-free pizza? Is it good? Or is it in the oven?
It's in the oven.
Okay.
It said to
Smart, because she's 8.
Oven.
She does it herself.
Said preheat oven to 425 Fahrenheit.
This kid's so independent. I love her so much. It's amazing.
I have a 10-minute timer because it says 8 to 10 minutes. I don't know what 8 to 10 minutes.
It means it's usually going to take between 8 to 10 minutes, but it depends. So like so I'm trying to teach my kids how to look. I barely know how to cook is the truth, but I'm trying to teach my kids as best I can how to cook. So what it means is if it's between 8 and 10 minutes is depending on your oven. Sometimes like you set it to 425, but it doesn't stay exactly 425. It can be like maybe 400, maybe 450. So sometimes take a little less, a little more time. So they give you like a time range that's going to take between this time and that time. But for me,
thumbs up.
Huh? Oh yeah, I think, see here, Tori.
Oh.
Yeah, so Tori was on. Yeah.
Oh, is she still on?
Yeah, we're actually talking about vaccines. I keep showing this list off because if anybody happens to be scrolling by and seeing it, this is the CDC's own list of vaccines and their ingredients. We are looking at the various ingredients, including formaldehyde, sodium chloride, food coloring, because why not? Aborted fetal cells. Let's inject all of that into our newborns. That's how we get healthy. She's making a gluten-free pizza. You should put the timer on for 10 minutes.
Yeah, I did.
This kid's amazing, ain't she? I got to cook for her. All right, guys, I am going to sign off. Grace, is there anything you would like to say to anybody?
No.
You want to come and just tell Anna, say hello in case Tori. Put it up. Here, put that in front of me.
Pizza box.
Okay. You can come say hi to Anna. Talk in this one.
Hi, Anna. Just want to say hi.
We hope you're having a good day and a good week at school. Tomorrow is our half day, so we're available in the afternoon for tea or for fun. If it's really nice out, I'm thinking maybe we can do a little walk, like go find like some woods nearby and just like explore a little bit like we would back home. What do you think of that?
Yeah.
Good idea.
There's a pizza box because there's actually my school trips.
Yeah. All right, friends. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Hit the thumbs up button if you can. It really helps to feed the algorithm monster. Bye, guys. Take it easy.